All right, buddy, here's a pinch and a burn, okay? 1, 2, 3, pinch.
This is Dr. Joseph Foley. He's just inserted a very thin wire into the blood vessel of the patient. He will guide that wire up the blood vessel and into the blood vessels that surround the heart. Using images of a past procedure, he explains.
This lady had a heart attack, and this is the catheter, a different catheter now in the right-sided coronary artery. And what you can see here is nice contrast flow, and then all of a sudden it stops. That's where the blockage was. That was a SC segment elevation MI, or STEMI. And this is this right-sided vessel that's completely blocked. So how we fix this with our catheters is by putting a wire through our catheters across the blockage. You can see just by putting a wire across it restores flow. We then put a balloon in place after we suck out some of the clot and debris that had plugged the vessel. This balloon is inflated to help further restore flow, and you can see how large of a territory was missing. After that, we put a stent in place. A stent is designed, we picked the diameter of the stent based on the diameter of the vessel and the length of the blockage that we want to cover. That stent's wrapped on top of a balloon, and then when that balloon gets inflated, the stent gets as large as it can be. We then take out the balloon, look at things, see if there's any other work that needs to be done. We then take things out and take final pictures. As soon as blood flow was restored, she got completely better. Her chest pain was gone.
And that's what they do here. This is the Center for Interventional Cardiology at Wellmont Hospital in Bristol. They intervene during a heart attack to prevent that heart attack from doing irreparable damage to the heart.
Within Wellmont and within our system here at Bristol Regional Medical Center, we're a level 1 heart attack center, where if there's anywhere within our regional territory that notices any EKG changes consistent with an SC segment myocardial infarction or a STEMI, they trigger the whole cath lab team to come in. And our goal is to treat the patient and get the vessel open between the time the first EKG is done to get the vessel open within 90 minutes. The sooner that you can open the vessel up, the less long-term damage there can be in the heart itself. We say that time is muscle, and the faster we can open the vessel up, the less long-term consequences there will be from having a heart attack, which is why it's important to not just sit back and hopefully, take antacids or for indigestion or something and blow off the chest pain and just let it fester.
And that's a very big problem. With time being so limited, a person's decision to postpone getting treatment for chest pains can prove to be fatal.
So a heart attack, when a heart attack occurs, it's because a blood vessel is completely blocked. So downstream from that blockage, there's absolutely no blood flow, no nutrients, no oxygen, nothing. The longer that occurs, the heart's a muscle just like any other muscle. It needs nutrients to continue to work. If it's not getting blood supply, if it's not getting nutrients, the muscles and the tissue start to die. Once the damage progresses to the point where it's irreversible, and the longer that the blood flow is compromised, the more long-term damage there is, potentially the larger a heart attack can become. What can happen long-term if somebody just sits and the heart attack gets worse and worse and worse is that as the muscle continues to die, the muscle doesn't squeeze as effectively as it should. Heart failure symptoms can develop. Fluid can start to build up in the lungs. The muscles that connect the valves and keep the heart valves in place, they're all tethered. Every heart valve is tethered to the muscle walls. And if there's damage to the muscle itself and it starts to break down, those anchor points can break loose, and you can have acute valve problems and have acute heart failure symptoms and have significant problems breathing and stop breathing potentially. In addition, because the muscle is damaged, the normal electrical pathway that the electrical conduction system travels through in the heart is altered. And the damaged heart muscle, the dead heart muscle, becomes excitable, and it can generate its own electrical pulses, which shouldn't normally occur, and life-threatening rhythm problems can develop. So long term, you can even have a risk of rupture, where the muscle just progresses to the point where it thins out, thins out, thins out, and then bursts. So staying at home and just being a macho man is not the thing to do. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Some people are more inclined to have heart problems.
When to seek medical care. The best time to do it would probably be if symptoms were to develop. Okay, if you have any sort of heart-related symptoms, you should at least talk to your primary care doctor. They can go through a lot of the screening process, see if they think it's heart disease, talk about your history, test you for classic risk factors for heart disease. Sometimes people never know that they have diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol if they don't ever get it checked out. So it's a lot of it is based on just looking for risk factors if symptoms develop. If a primary care doctor, if they have any concerns about heart disease or if they want expert consultation, then they'll send somebody to see a heart doctor, and we see people like that all the time on a daily basis. Other situations where people should seek a heart doctor is if they have a strong family history of heart disease, if they have multiple risk factors that they know about, if they just want to get a checkup just to be on the lookout for things. Oftentimes we may not do anything other than just do a full risk assessment and try and modify whatever risk factors we can to prevent them from having heart disease. But unless there's a problem that's actively ongoing or symptoms that are ongoing, oftentimes we just kind of try and modify whatever risk factors we can and encourage them to lead a healthy lifestyle, period. Or what I recommend to my patients is to try to lead a healthy lifestyle as much as they can. That involves routine exercise. I tell people that the only days they need to exercise are days that end in Y, or days that they eat a meal. So that's typically every day. And sometimes exercise isn't going to a gym or training for marathons. It's just being more active on a daily basis, parking farther away in the parking lot, getting a longer walk into wherever they're going, taking the stairs instead of elevators, just trying to be as active as possible, going for walks around their neighborhood if the weather permits. And then beyond that, eating a healthy diet. Healthy diet is basically trying to stay away from processed, high fat, high cholesterol, high salt foods. Eating more fruits, vegetables, nuts, things like that. Those are all just heart-healthy diets that are available, that are easily accessible to anybody with internet access or with print publications in a primary care doctor's office or a cardiologist's office. Beyond that, the number one thing that I tell people to do is to quit smoking. If they're smoking, they absolutely have to quit smoking. Without a doubt, we know that any type of nicotine, any type of tobacco product, it not only directly damages the vessels themselves and leads to accelerated heart disease, but it also repairs the natural repair mechanisms that the heart has developed and the vessels have within themselves to repair any damage that's there. So it's kind of a double whammy. If you stop smoking, there's a good chance that it will minimize your risk for having heart disease. But if during your time of smoking damage has occurred, it's hard for some of that damage to be completely reversed. But without a doubt, whatever damage or whatever plaque buildup has developed won't continue to progress as long as other risk factors are adequately controlled.
Preventive care can reduce a person's chance of a heart attack, but if that heart attack takes place, it becomes a fight against time. The Bristol, Tennessee Fire Department has received equipment from Wellmont that enables the EMT to transmit the EKG readings directly to the hospital. This is a huge advantage in that fight.
Sometimes we've given the paramedics liberty to activate the cath lab themselves, to skip a step, because waiting for transmission to an emergency department and waiting for potentially a really busy emergency doctor to look at the EKG and give a thumbs up or thumbs down, sometimes that can cost precious minutes. So we've given the paramedics free liberty that if they think it's a heart attack, to activate the cath lab team. We'd rather have them be wrong than have them miss something. Time is the enemy. Yep. We have a goal, what's called a door to balloon time of 90 minutes, and the clock's ticking as soon as that first EKG is done.
The patient on the table is a man that was traveling through Bristol. He started having chest pains and checked himself into the hospital. After conducting a complete examination in Wellmont's catheter lab, Dr. Foley updates us on the procedure.
So our patient had multiple blockages and multiple blood vessels. He had some stents in the vessels to the right side of his heart. Some of them had re-narrowed. He had problems taking medicines in the past. So looking at everything with his multiple blockages, the fact that he's a diabetic, I really think that a surgical bypass surgery is going to be in his best long-term interest rather than trying to stent all these vessels. So we're going to refer him for a bypass surgery.
This sort of thing happens here on a regular basis. Using a combination of state-of-the-art equipment and highly trained personnel, lives are saved. Take care of yourself. It's important.